friends, and my family. This is Trevor Chapman, modern-day man, entrepreneur, achiever, purveyor of the good life, student of life, marketer. After over 10 years in business, tens of millions of dollars, I've learned this one thing. There's too much noise. It takes tactics and strategy. You can't buy it, you earn it through experience. Failure after failure hones the craft. You must become a warrior. It's time to run. The experience you can't buy. You had to have earned it. It's my turn to give back and contribute. I share all of my lessons from 7 to 8 and from 8 to 9 figures. We'll see if it goes from 9 to 10, but I'm gonna give it all to you. Consistency, persistence, dedication, vision, time, discipline, work. I'm gonna give it all to you so that you learn from where I failed and you learn from my experience. My brothers, this is your daily fuel. Welcome back, everybody. This is Trevor Chapman from TrevorChapman.com and, of course, from AcademyOfArbitrage.com. And we today together are celebrating our first win. Now, it's a minuscule win. It's like literally landing in the country that houses the mountain you're going to climb, and you made it through security. Like, you're not even on the trail yet, but hey, let's celebrate each individual win. Today I had someone post in Russell Brunson's group on Facebook that I was the number 6 spot business podcast. Above Tony Robbins, above Tim Ferriss, above Grant Cardone, above Gary Vee, above Ty Lopez. Oh, that's funny that that's in business. Anyway, guys, amazing, and I'm honored. But again, it only is worthy of a momentary second of saying woohoo, because the road ahead of us is long and violent, with high highs and low lows. That's just how it is. To achieve triumph takes years of doubt, fear, mainly pushing those out. Because for a long time, when you first start your business, you are going to be making less, most likely less, than your peers who have regular 9-to-5 jobs. You're going to be financially strapped, financially burdened. You're going to have a whole different set. You'll have all of their stresses, right? Which are everything to do with the workplace, everything to do with personal bills. But then you're going to have all of your business stresses as well. But my friends, if you will prime the pump, eventually water will flow and you will not worry about daily priming the pump, because the pump will have been primed. Let me share a little story with you guys. Actually, it's kind of an anniversary of what happened. You know what? It actually could be 24 years ago to this very day. It's very likely. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that. 24 years ago this very day, I was in Sulawesi, Indonesia. This is before the internet. Literally, internet is not invented yet. This is before every home has a computer. This is well before cell phones. This is the Stone Age for my children, right? I'm a 10-year-old boy. My dad takes me on my first rite of passage trip. We went to Sulawesi, Indonesia. Well, we landed first in Bali, climbed the tallest volcano there, Gunung Agung. But then we flew a small local biplane or whatever over to Sulawesi, jumped in these Land Cruisers from the 60s and 70s, and traveled into the interior of the island for what I remember as days. Past Taraja Land, which now is fairly well known for people that are in that region. Deep, man. Deep into the island. So far that at one point in time we got out along this village that was along this river. And we were the first Westerners that these people had seen, this tribe had seen. They wouldn't touch my dad because obviously he was a infidel, right? But me, I was young and innocent, and the children and adults both ran over to me and started rubbing my skin to try and rub the white off my skin. Can you believe, just 24 years ago, can you believe that a pure to you has had this experience? Because it seems like the world is so flat now. But no, in my lifetime this happened. We were rafting a river called Sungai Satdan. Sungai means river. Satdan is the name of the river. Like the Great Colorado River, right? This river was rated 5-6. Class 5 and Class 6. Sections of Class 6. Those of you who are listening are like, dude, Class 6 means it's impassable. That is correct. It means that you literally have to haul the raft out and portage it down the river in order to get through those sections of the river. Now, I've never rafted before. This is my first time whitewater rafting, and it's not a Class 2 or Class 3, it's Class 5, Class 6. In Sulawesi, Indonesia, no telephones, no cell phones, no internet. My mom has no clue that we're here because this was a side trip we decided to make last minute. And this is in Indonesia where there's not a phone you can pick up easily, years ago, guys, to just call your landline in Guam and say, hey, we're going to head over to this island. So as I look back on it now, I'm like, wow, crazy. I want to talk about a very particular time on this trip that's pertinent to you. We're rafting down the river. It's day 2. Rapids are crazy. Water flying everywhere. My dad's fallen out. I've fallen out. It's just madness. I'm enjoying it, but I'm also terrified. I'm literally terrified to go on. And as we approach these 2 boulders the size of massive houses, the side of the raft got caught underneath one of them, and water, if you don't know the power of water, I'll tell another story at another podcast where my wife almost died when we were in Costa Rica. A huge eye-opener for me, but the power of water is monstrous. I cannot describe it to you because we get in a bath and we push the water around and we slide back and forth. It's chilled. No. In nature, water is deadly. And water started to fill the raft, the inflatable Sobek raft, to the point where it started to literally sink. That is the power of the force of water. All the water was channeled through these 2 boulders, and we were caught. The guides, there was 2 guides, Joseph and Enos. Joseph spoke very broken English. Enos only spoke the native Taraja dialect on Sulawesi. And Joseph and Enos both pointed to the boulder. And so I jumped out. My dad helped me get out on top of this boulder. This boulder was massive. And for the first time since we arrived in Sulawesi, I felt safe. It's hard to describe to you that moment unless you've been through some traumatic moments. In 93, I was in an 8.2 earthquake for 60 seconds. Every step I took, I thought that I personally was going to set off aftershocks and tremors that were going to knock our house down. As a side note. And so, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, the first time I had felt actually safe and secure in those 2 days was when I got on that boulder and I realized I can literally sit here and not face this fear. And I felt good. And I watched as they all, luckily, and we lost paddles and everything, but everything else was stowed. It was tied down well. My dad helped them, and suddenly they dislodged the raft. And it literally burst to the surface like a submarine coming up. You know how they jump up to the surface, in those grand pictures, especially during the days of military might in the 80s and 90s. They'd have those pictures all over everything. It burst up. My dad, Joseph, and Enos were already on it because, it was probably knee-deep in water, and they were trying to pry it away from this rock. My dad yelled, "Jump on, Trevor," and I stood there completely frozen. This boulder in the middle of the river was probably, I'll be honest, I remember it like the size of a football field, but I know that's not true. It was probably 10 yards long, so 30 feet long. But I remember it literally the size of a football field in my head, but hey, that's what happens when you're younger and you're small, right? And he said, "Trevor, jump." And in a split second, my world paused. And I recognized 2 things. I recognized that I could stay there. And that if I did, eventually they'd pull the raft over, they'd walk back up the side of the river, they'd help get me across. My dad would say, this is too intense for my 10-year-old. Class 5, class 6 is ridiculous. We'd make our way back. We'd find the land cruisers over 4 or 5 days of land travel and then go out. I realized that. I could have had my way out. And as a 10-year-old, I wasn't thinking about what anyone in my class thought. I wasn't thinking about what anyone thought. There was no pride associated with that. But I recognized, as I looked into my dad's eyes, I saw that here was a man that I trusted with my life. He was further down the road than me. And while we did many things that were dangerous, he was a scuba diving instructor, and when I was 8 or 9, I went down to 70 feet, which, if Patty knew that, they would probably revoke his certification. But I had always made it out, and he was always there helping. At one point in time, we were boonie stomping in the jungle of Guam, looking for World War II firefights. And as we sat on the side of this little clear freshwater river, an eel, literally a freshwater eel, came flying out of the water up towards me. I'm right on the side of this rocky little river in Guam. And I stood there frozen. This is probably as a 6 or 7-year-old. My dad's arm came down with the machete and hit the eel on the neck. You know, it's a long body. Before it was able to get me, and literally the machete bounced off of the rubbery body and it retreated and we didn't jump in. So in a split second, I recalled, and guys, dozens, potentially 100 more moments like that flew through my brain in a split second, and I realized that this man who was further down the road from me believed this to be the right path. And I decided to be obedient and to stand my fear in the face and jump. After all, life is a grand adventure or nothing at all. And I took off sprinting because the raft, a split second later, was probably 10, 20 feet away from me down the river, moving at a swift kick. And I took off sprinting across the top of that boulder, realizing I wasn't going to make it. And as I looked my dad in the eye, he was standing up in the back of this inflatable raft, legs lodged underneath either side to kind of stay standing up. And he looked me in the eye and he yelled, "Jump." And I flung myself from the end of that boulder that was probably 20 feet above the water level. Not just kind of step off when you go cliff jumping with kids. It was a do or die moment in my 10-year-old brain. I either had to make it to the raft or I would die. And I leapt with all my might, and I did not make it into the raft. But I made it far enough with my hands outstretched enough for my dad to be able to grab my wrist. And I still went under the water. I did have a life jacket on, but he pulled me onto the raft. And when I got pulled onto the raft, the sensation that I had experienced for 2 prior days of absolute terror and dread was no longer there. Because I had just committed myself, my decision, not my dad's decision, not someone else's decision, my decision. I committed to raft down that river. There is a power in making the decision yourself and recognizing that decision. Now, many times in life you will be blessed with someone who's further down the road from you, who's telling you, yes, this is the way to do it. Trust. If you would trade places with them in their business, financially, physically, whatever, trust them. Don't listen to the people you would not trade places with. But if you would trade places because they're further down the road, more successful, etc., in any aspect of life, trust them. Spiritually, physically, financially, whatever. But then make the decision yourself. Don't just say, I'm going to do what this guy says, and I hope you're right. See, that's not being committed. That's still placing the responsibility on somebody else. So what I'm telling you to do is, in those moments of terror and distress and duress and moments when you do not think you will survive, whatever you're going through, look for the person that says jump if it is the correct decision, and then you commit. You own the decision. You decide. You embody the moment. And your body will do something very interesting. It will kick out fear. I promise you, friends, I did not fear after that. There were moments I was afraid, but I did not fear because of a decision that I had made. Nothing changed. Yes, it was day 2, day 3, day 4. We've become acclimated to situations that potentially impacted it a little bit. But I was with the same people. I was on the same river. I was the same little boy. I still had zero experience. What changed was my commitment to it. Not following someone into the dark, but jumping, leaping, hands first, arms outstretched to get on that boat. My friends, get on your boat. Until tomorrow, much love, much respect. Get on your boat. Share this with someone who needs to get on their boat, who needs to make the decision. Whether it's motherhood, because motherhood is hard for a first-time mother, a business owner, someone training for a marathon, I don't care what it is. Help them get committed by sharing this story with them. Please give us a 5-star review and rating so we can continue to climb and impact and help as many people as possible. All my love, all my respect. Until tomorrow, friends. Trevor out.